bec- if you are interested in becoming a member of the RRMA, and if you want to know more about the membership benefits, please contact someone in the RRMA team during the tea break. Now, staying up to date on the chemical technology and regulatory landscape has become nowadays a challenge with the ever changing existing chemical regulations and new laws being put in place again and again. An increasing number of countries are implementing their own special varieties of the chemical legislation and regulations. To address those challenges, GCCI and the RRMA has initiated these events that cover several regulations including EU REACH, Korea REACH, Turkey REACH, and give a global outlook of key regulatory requirements in 2023 for you. I wish shortly India Reach can be also implemented as fast as possible. I hope you will find this event informative and useful. And GCCI look forward to receiving your valuable feedback and suggestions. If you have any inquiries regarding the chemical compliance, you can contact RRMA or GPCA. Thank you. And I wish you all a very good afternoon and the successful of this particular event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I may request Sri Harish Bhuta, President GDMA, for his address.
And more importantly, the participants who have joined us post lunch. This is my favorite session because half the people are sleepy, so you can get away with murder. Well, but anyway, on the serious note, I'd like to thank the chamber for organizing this seminar on chemical regulatory obligations and awareness program. RRMA, as an organization, has come forward to help all our industries, and a lot of us are SMEs who don't always know the finer regulatory points and the registration procedures. So their offer to help us to work as a mediator between the actually registration agencies and SMEs is a very welcome step. So thank you very much, Dr. Weber, for this. And I hope that people would take advantage of this because as REACH has matured virtually now, other countries are following suit. And Turkey, South Korea, and as Anil said, Japan, China, they're all in line. Maybe India would come in also with this regulation. But what we find that as SMEs, we don't really have the expertise to go through the nitty-gritties of these regulations and the best way forward at the minimum cost. Because REACH initially was a very costly affair as time went along when we became clusters and we had a cluster approach to getting registrations for bulk of our members. It became cheaper and cheaper. But without this, unfortunately, you cannot now export into Europe. And that same thing is happening with Turkey, which is for dyestuff, is one of the major destination. So I hope that all of you take advantage of this and use this virtually a free service at the moment from RRMA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we move ahead to our panel discussion, I may invite Dr. Weber for his presentation.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Kavita, for giving us the stage now. I'll take it forward. And first of all, I would like to thank all the participants who have taken part in this session, as well as all the dignitaries who were on a stage just a minute ago. And most importantly, thanks a lot for all the associations as well as GCCI for helping an organization which is a new organization like RRMA to help reach out to the right participants, right companies, in order to share our main purpose, which is generating awareness regarding chemical regulations. So what is RRMA? RRMA, as the name suggests, it's Regulatory Representatives and Managers Association. The keywords are obviously regulatory, but in addition to this, for whom this association is, it's for representatives as well as managers, which means any person who is trying to do a job of a regulatory manager or is trying to comply with the regulations, whether in the capacity of a regulatory consultancy company, whether in the capacity of a chemical manufacturing company, as part of their regulatory teams, they all require similar type of knowledge in order to do their job well. So when we tried to find out different types of associations, we could not find a single umbrella association which would bring in all these professionals under one roof. It's an Indian non-profit organization, and it is chaired by Mr. Gerd Danset. He is the first elected executive director of European Chemical Agency. As we know that the first regulations on these lines was ECHA. He has been the executive director for ECHA for almost 10 years, from 2007 till 2017. And after that, he's heading the Helsinki Chemicals Forum, which is the global regulatory dialogue for the state of the art of regulations in Europe. We also have Mr. Anil Johri with us. He is the co-chair of RRMA, and he is the former CEO of NABCB, National Accreditation Board for Certified Bodies. We also have Mr. Anupam Kaul with us. He is the general secretary in the organization. He has headed CII's Institute of Quality for several years, and he also has a spanning career of more than 30 years in the quality aspect and certification in many ISO standards and so on and so forth. In October last year, RRMA was inaugurated in Delhi under the honorable presence of Secretary DCPC, Mr. Arun Baroka ji. And thereafter, we have been trying to reach out to all the major organizations across the country involving CII, ICC, Chemexcel, Indian Chamber of Food and Agriculture, and PMFAI. You can see the different types of organizations here are chemicals and related sectors. Through GPC, we have been also fortunate enough to already keep working with GCCI in the capacity of regulatory knowledge partner. In this stage, we are the global regulatory knowledge partner for CII, ICC, and Chemexcel. The reason for that is that GPC is already a knowledge partner for all these organizations for past many years, and it was a humble opportunity for us, as well as they were kind enough to help us introduce to all these organizations in RRMA. So why RRMA? We know that REACH was introduced in Europe in 2008. It has been around 14 years, and since then, a lot of different countries are coming with REACH and REACH-like regulations. With this, obviously, there are higher demands on companies that want to comply with the regulations, especially the exporting companies. And for that, obviously, we need to have awareness and knowledge in order to do the job of doing the certifications or registrations in such regulations. What are the challenges faced by India? Right now, one of the biggest challenges faced by India is that whenever a chemical manufacturer from India tries to export to a country which has a technical regulation like REACH, we need to comply with very high standards of their regulations. But when a company tries to put their products in the Indian market, they don't have such high standards in terms of technical regulations, which obviously contributes to the trade deficit part of things, and it's not at all a level playing field. There is obviously, for all these things, there is a growing need for regulatory professionals from industry, especially for SMEs, because for larger corporations, usually they have designated regulatory department as well as regulatory professionals working for them. But for SMEs, they are primarily focusing on their product as well as their manufacturing. So this is the kind of knowledge that would be directly helpful for them. There are also policymakers and regulatory staff in India that would require support in chemical regulations, because we have a very proactive approach towards compliance. We have a very proactive approach towards supporting industry, but the kind of knowledge in terms of technical regulations the policymakers need, that's also lacking at some stage. And then only few MNCs have responsible regulatory resources in-house when we talk about even large size companies, because they might be large size companies with a relatively smaller product portfolio, but at the same time, they don't have dedicated regulatory staff working for them. The overall aims of RRMA are to enhance the number of regulatory professionals, specifically in India, effective compliance of companies assisted by certified professionals. The word certified professionals is very important here, because when we try to look out for different accreditation programs or certified programs, it was almost, it became very hard for us to identify if there is a certified program for technical regulations like REACH and so on and so forth. So we are also going to contribute to this, and I'll talk about this later in my presentation. Once we have the knowledge regarding technical regulations, and we have used that knowledge for our company for compliance, then obviously in long term, in downstream, it would minimize regulatory risk and the associated cost for member organizations for RRMA as well as member professionals. Ultimately, it promotes sustainability and responsible business management. And we are also involved with the aim of advising authorities in forthcoming legislations in India. So that was all from my side on the introduction of RRMA. And right after this, I would continue with my first presentation, as I'm the first presenter for today, which is on Global Chemical Regulatory Outlook 2023. So by the time the presentation is coming up, in short, I'll be talking about what are the latest updates from some key countries across the globe, how those updates from those regulations from those respective countries might affect your business, and possibly wherever applicable, we would also share advice on, based on that deadline, what you may need to do in order to comply. Yes. So I request all of you to have a very, very focused approach towards this slide. This is a global chemical regulatory landscape as of today, which means wherever you see green bubbles, all those countries have some kind of chemical legislation in place. If you are exporting to these countries, you need to follow that legislation in order to do business. The countries marked in yellow bubble, all of these countries are in transition state for a chemical legislation. That means they have already drafted a regulation. It is either in internal consultation or in public consultation, and it would sooner or later, maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time, would come into force. Then there are countries where there is no legislation. That means there is no draft stage, but they might be complying with, trying to adapt with some version of GHS. They might be thinking about having an internal dialogue to bring in a regulation. All in all, the different types of bubble combined are more than 45 different countries. And the key take-home message from this slide is that the regulatory landscape in the chemical sector is ever growing, and it's growing very fast. Another important point is that when REACH came, obviously for small and micro-sized companies or medium-sized companies, it also brings in a huge amount of cost associated to it. But at the same time, it also brings in an opportunity for investment in long term. So it's better that we start seeing these regulations as more as business opportunities and less as regulatory hurdles, because the ultimate aim of these regulations is to understand what the substance is, what's its properties. If it has any harmful effects, then what are those effects? Which also means that when you are compliant with one kind of REACH regulation, if the other country imposes that, and if you are the data owner in the previous country, then the new country might most likely accept the information that you have already submitted to other authorities, because there is no point in copying, pasting same data again and again with the similar type of cost. So I'll be talking about different types of regulations: China, EU, Latin America. Some of my colleagues would be talking about EU, Korea, as well as Turkey REACH. So I'll put that in brief. And then we'll have updates from UK, Vietnam, and obviously chemicals management in India. Is there anyone in the audience whose country of export is, for example, not listed in this content? Maybe someone is exporting to USA. Yes. Yeah, Australia. That's a very good point. Sorry, USA. Yes. So the New Zealand. Yes. Japan is not mentioned here, for example. Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And I can assure you that all those countries are covered under all those bubbles, but obviously I have some certain restraints about talking not in detail about all those countries. But we'll talk about how we can get the information regarding all those regulations after my presentation as well. So in China, there are two major regulations right now under chemicals and cosmetics. The first one, MME Order 12, is the China REACH. It has been already implemented. The final deadline has been crossed. And if your substances are already registered, then you need to just check for your new uses. And if they are not registered, then obviously you need to register. There is an update under China MME Order 12. As of 29 December 2022, there are 14 new pollutants they have prescribed for control. So if you have your chemical as one of these pollutants, then this amendment would come into force from 1st of May 2023. And then you need to comply with this regulation. Under China NMPA, is there anyone who is manufacturing a raw material that is being exported to China for cosmetics use? Is there anyone who has a raw material that you are manufacturing and exporting to China for cosmetics use? Yes. Absolutely. So in that case, you might know that there is an NMPA notification that was required to be done. The deadline for that has been passed. And if you have submitted the notification, then the deadline for updating that, submitting the annual report would be until 31st of March 2023. That needs to be done. In case you have not done, then there is also a possibility to do that after this deadline. As of 1st of May 2023, you also need to submit all ingredient safety information. You also need to be in label compliance, and you need to evaluate your efficacy claim in line with the rules, and they need to be uploaded with abstract of efficacy claim. Under European Union, we all know, I'll not go too much in detail about the European Union REACH regulation because my colleague would talk about that later. But there are few updates in the revision side. There are updates on hazard classification. They are more focused on critical hazards. There are more information for carcinogenic substances. The grouping of polymers requiring registration, it has also been added and changed. There are risk assessment concepts and requirements regarding the MAF, as well as there are revision on registration requirements. One of the most important things here is that they have prescribed stricter compliance follow-ups on especially those chemicals which are being placed in the EU market from outside EU. That would impact all of us, whoever is doing business with EU. And then there is an essential use concept. In addition, there are also discussions on PFAS restriction proposal, which would be to be published in February 2023. It must be already online if that date has been followed. And then there are ECA compliance investigations that needs to be followed up from 23 to 25. Under CLP, also, there are in the revision package as of 19 December 2022, there is the revision package contains adequate and uniform classification in the EU. It talks about improved hazard communication and also the classification that we talked about earlier. There are also new hazard classes introduced. So we know that the REACH regulation has evolved a lot and they have also learned a lot regarding different types of classification. And then there are 4 different types of new hazard classes that are added. So if your substances classify for any of these hazard classes, then the information needs to be updated. The transition period for all of these activities would be anywhere between 24 months to 60 months, depending upon it's a new substance, a mixture, so on and so forth. And then the amendments are to be followed up by spring 2023. Where does REACH go from here after 14 years being enforced? What's next in REACH? That's where the safe and sustainable by design framework comes in. This is the latest dialogue right now. And it is the future of chemical innovation as well as chemical markets by creating better chemicals. And this would obviously align with the last stages of European chemical regulation, which is on the evaluation side of things, authorization side of things, and then there is also a concept about restriction, so on and so forth. There is a recommendation in annex on this, which talks about methods for assessing safety and sustainability aspects of chemicals or materials. Obviously, for larger corporation, it is encouraging manufacturers to follow these recommendations. And on the voluntary basis, you can do the reporting based on the 2-year testing to evaluate your chemicals. The formal criteria for this framework are expected in 2025. In Latin America, in short, there are many different countries, but for most of these countries, there has been long discussions about different types of chemical regulations. Some are in advanced stage, some are in middle stage, some are, for some regulations, we have certainty on certain deadlines. For some regulations, we have certainty on deadlines within the certain aspects of those regulations. So I'll just briefly touch upon the key major important points, which are mainly marked in red. If the regulation in Brazil gets approved, then within the 3-year deadline, you need to adapt existing chemical registrations. So if your chemical is already being placed in the Brazilian market, then within the publication of, after the publication within 3 years, you need to complete the registration. Also on the side of police control chemicals, there are 2-methylene chloride and 1,2-dichloroethane. There are guidelines on that as of October 2022. And there are new regulations on the transportation of hazardous goods. All these changes would be applied from 1st of June 2023 onwards. In Chile, under this regulation, every 2 years, manufacturers and importers of dangerous substances have to notify the environmental authority. So if you have a chemical which is categorized as dangerous and is being placed in Chile, then that is the procedure that needs to be followed. The key deadlines would all end in 2029. But based on the type of substance and its use, industrial use starts in 2022. That has already been started. Non-industrial substances, that would start, I believe that has started 2 days ago on February 9th. And industrial mixtures, that would start in 2025, as well as non-industrial mixtures in 27. In Colombia, they have already launched an online portal for chemical substances for industrial use. So if you are exporting something which is for industrial use in Colombia, then you need to find out if your substances are present in this online portal or not. In other countries, in Argentina, for example, there is an update on cosmetics and personal care products. You must comply with the requirements within 36 months from the mentioned date. As well as there are importers, manufacturers, and others, they have to finalize their product registration under this Act of Cosmetics by September 29, 2025. In Mexico, most of the updates are related to transport documents of dangerous goods that would be applicable to your buyers there. What is an update in South Korea? My colleague will talk much more in detail about this. I'll tell you there are 2 major important deadlines. If you are exporting to Korea under 100 to 1,000 tons per annum, you have 1.5 years almost left until the end of 2024 to complete your registration of existing substances. Then there is a deadline on MSDS submissions, which is for 10 to 100 tons per annum. And this would be in 16th of January, 2024, which is from 6 to 8 months from now. On Turkey, I would like to skip this part because in 10 minutes, you will hear a much more detailed presentation from my colleague on this. This would save us some time to catch up as well. Under UK, we all know Brexit has happened. UK has moved out. There has been REACH adaptation, exactly the replica of EU REACH. There were deadlines that were prescribed based on the different transition provisions and tonnage bands. But the recent update is that all of these deadlines would be extended to 3 years from 26 to 28 to 2030. But we are waiting for the final administration consent. So it's not in public domain, but the HSC, who is the competent authority, they have done the public consultation, and based on that, these deadlines are most likely to be extended. Anyone exporting to Vietnam? Yes. So if you're exporting to Vietnam, you may know that the government is working on a chemical legislation. It has undergone a lot of consultation, and the government has opened the inventory portal for almost 4 times in the past recent years. The last time it was closed on April, I believe, in 2021. So if you are exporting to Vietnam, you need to submit to this inventory. You need to notify in this inventory. If you have done that by 15th of February every year, which would be next week in this case, You need to submit an annual report. And with the pace, updates in the regulations are ongoing. Most likely, we are expecting a submission for approval in May 2025. And after that, there would be a transition period of one year. And during that 1 year transition period of time, the government may open the portal for inventory submission one last time. So that's it. I think this would be my last topic, India. And I believe we talked about many different regulations. If you are exporting, then that would affect your business because you are an exporter. But what about something which affects all the manufacturers who are manufacturing chemicals in India? So how many of you know that India has drafted its Indian Chemicals Management and Safety Rules, which is in colloquial terms, you can say, or synonymously, you can say it's India REACH, but there are a lot of differences which we'll talk about in my next slide. How many of you know that there is a draft regulation like India REACH that exists? Yes, so you're aware of that something is cooking, right? If I see the hands on the back, then the response is no different. And we are happy to see that because this is our purpose to generate awareness about. We have done events. This is the last event in this series. And in all the places, whenever I have asked this question, there has been a less than 5% response in terms of they know that this regulation exists. From the couple of people who have raised their hands, do you know what does this regulation contain? It's a 98-page draft regulation. What does this regulation contain? And do you know how it may affect your business when it comes in future? I believe there are no hands in the audience right now. So in addition to this India REACH, we obviously have BIS. I'll briefly touch upon that. What is Indian Chemicals Management and Safety Rule? We can say it's an India REACH version. It would obviously, cover substances and mixtures, substances and articles and intermediates. There are some exemptions, but pretty much everything that is being manufactured in India in quantities above 1 ton and is being placed in the Indian territory would be regulated under this regulation. One of the other very important point is, irrespective of the use of your chemical, to which industry it is going, it's going to cosmetics, it's going to agrochemicals, it's going to medical devices, it's going to some food packaging. Irrespective of the use, the government, as per this regulation, would require notification for ICMSR. Now, which are the targeted activities? Manufacturers, importers. If you are buying chemicals from outside, then the non-Indian company can appoint an authorized representative, like we have an OR in EU REACH. It's little different because the requirements for becoming an OR are much stricter in India compared to becoming an OR in Europe. How to comply with this regulation? Obviously, there is a notification requirement, there is a registration requirement, there is a annual reporting requirement. But how are these different than EU REACH? In EU REACH, we had pre-registration. That pre-registration can be considered as a notification in India REACH. But India REACH would require you to submit your substance identity details at the notification stage, which was not required in pre-registration in EU. Why? Because right now we have Dangerous Goods, Hazardous Chemicals Acts. And for a handful of chemicals, government has some information what is being placed in the market. Obviously, we have BIS certification. There are other certifications as well, but it doesn't cater to majority of the chemicals that are being placed in the market. So the primary purpose here is to have an understanding of the identity of your chemical that is being placed in the market. But when it comes to registration, the government says that you don't have to comply with the registration for all of your chemicals because we are no more in 2007. Right now, the industry has grown significantly when it comes to compliance. And as I said in the beginning of my presentation, the ultimate aim of these regulations is to have an understanding of your chemicals and then move towards safer environment and safer human health. So the government has said that we will only require registration for Schedule 2 substances, which as of now are 748 in number. It's a dynamic list. So in future, more chemicals can be added to that list. And that's why in notification stage, it would be a nice idea to submit only spectral data and not go for registration for all chemicals. Because we know for majority of the other countries from that data that maybe they don't have such harmful effects that would require all sorts of registrations. Then there would be annual reporting, and annual reporting would also be applicable for notification stage. One of the very important points here is because of all these differences, the government has prescribed a deadline for both notification and registration for all chemicals of 18 months. And whoever has complied for any kind of REACH regulation, you, I think, very well understand that it's a very challenging timeline to meet. But at the same time, since not all the chemicals would go for registration, when the regulation comes into force within 1 year of transition period, you will have a 6 months window under which the submission needs to be done. So at least for the notification, it is a realistic timeline. We have been also in consultation with DCPC, and we have discussed and argued on behalf of industry proactively with our understanding from different types of REACH regulations that they should consider extending the deadline for registration at least. Now, how can you prepare for this regulation? Obviously, if you have, sorry.
Notification is mandatory for all substances if it is exceeding 1 ton per annum. All substances. Irrespective of you are into manufacturing of a pharmaceutical product or a cosmetic product, anything for that matter. Anything more than 1 ton per annum is applicable for the notification. But when it comes to the registration, 748 substances are being identified, and the basis for its identification is because they're either an endocrine disruptor or this having some property which is hazardous to the health, and for those reasons, with substantial data, maybe from the European REACH experience, they have considered them into the category of the priority list. So for all of us in India, the major difference compared to European REACH is, please register all the substances for notification, register only that comes to the list of the priority, that is Schedule 2, and which is a dynamic list. So the entire team members out here, I mean, you ask your team members also to in your company to keep a watch on the Schedule 2 list. Otherwise, all substance, please notify it. Notification involves basic informations like your substance name, spectral analysis, and the quantity. And of course, the company's name, the address, owner, that has to be given, profile. So here they are interested to understand the purity, impurity of your product. And also the most important thing here is, which is on the other right-hand side, you have to follow GHS Revision 8. So these are the important takeaways from this draft. And I do not know, somehow Dr. Vaibhav could not express initially. Post the inauguration, there are 3 sittings with the DCPC members to talk for the industries. So they're already doing the advocacy on behalf of the industries with the ministries. And what they proposed is, let us make the thing more simpler and the simplest way so we all can accommodate. Because we all know we have got dearth of data with us. That's the constraint we all are having. And unless I've also mentioned while we're having informal chat, we don't have data with us. Only the pharma sector has good quality data with us. But the pure chemical sector doesn't have so. Yeah, pharma has to have. Yeah. So that's the major thing. I mean, the key takeaway for all of us as far as ICMSR is concerned. Sorry.
Thanks.
Sir, EU has still not adopted the version 8 to my knowledge. But now we have the version 9 also in the domain. From the as per UN, the GHS version 9 also has come out. But what India thought of, why to adopt something which is the older one? When countries like New Zealand and Australia are going for 5 to 6, and we are not even ratified, we signed it. When we start, let us go big. And sabka saath, sabka vikas, how he is working. I mean, basically, it wants the latest to come to India. So, I mean, yeah, of course, it depends upon the framework policies. There are various frameworks. Absolutely. So GHS also, where is going to be implemented within the body which we understand as per the governing of the National Chemical Agency. It has people from various sectors who understand how to classify a product and how to adapt the things as per the Indian conditions. So what they say is that the version 8 has been fine-tuned more towards the physical properties of the products, which can identify is, for example, the explosivity or the corrosivity of a product. Otherwise, the version 6, 7 is already doing good with the ecotox and toxin. So there are tweaking done to the version. Otherwise, it's more or less the same. So of course, this will go to the WTO and more inputs, whether we should really accept the version 8 still is going to come out from that end. But this is what we have been told. If you are starting something, why not India take the latest one? Of course, 9 has come out, but they're not going to adopt the 9th version. This is our understanding based upon the latest that we have from the discussion with the various authorities. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. The ME12.
And there has been two updates in China Reach. Yes, so it is there since 2007. China Reach. Yes, first was EU. Yes, yes, and China, USA, Japan, Canada, they have their chemical legislations. Australia, they have their chemical legislations. It's just that they are not identical to EU Reach. They are adapted for the local conditions, and we'll talk about it. I mean, very relevant questions has been raised. Very important questions have been raised. Practical questions have been raised, and I'll address some of them also in my subsequent slides, because there is a reason for Mr. Gerd Danset to chair this association, because he brings in the most comprehensive regulatory implementation experience from the EU side of things. So when we had the meetings with DCPC, he was there in those meetings, and one of the primary discussion points was also to discuss that you should not be just adapting something from EU, you should be simplifying it and then adapting it to the local needs and then breaking it down so that it doesn't hamper the growth of the industry, but in parallel can go in hand in hand. So a couple of other points related to this ICMSR are that you need to identify in which schedules your chemicals fall in, because based on that, the requirements for registration would be defined. And then obviously stay up to date with ICMSR with trainings like this or some other platforms. In BIS, we all know that it has mandatory and voluntary certification scheme, but the latest update is they have with the stakeholder consultation in December 2022, they have considered another 58 chemicals, 53 from Rotterdam Convention and 5 suggested from industries for mandatory certification. There are 8 that has been finalized, which are on the screen. And from February to May this year, the rest of them are also probably going to be finalized. Another important thing here is, again, towards the growth of the regulatory landscape is, within the past less than a year time, we have seen mandatory certifications under BIS to go double, which was earlier the case. So this gives an indication that how, at what pace the Indian regulatory authorities are working towards compliance in a more comprehensive manner. Yes. I think the experts, when the experts stands up.
So sorry, I should have, what BIS follows the QCO fundamentals, and you all know more than me. It's more on the quality side. Absolutely right. It's absolutely the quality side. And second, what they're trying to do is that a lot of substandard products have been either manufactured or dumped into India. So more than the Indians, the people who are worried now is those are overseas, because we get a lot of questions. Believe me, I've addressed at least 10 questions per month from the exporters to India. And they say, why is India doing this to us? So what we say, they are having a quality specs. Why don't you follow that quality specs? And what they're fearing of again is, within this BIS, there's a mandatory audit that's going to happen. Audit of the premises of the manufacturer. So they say, when these things are implemented, how are you going to make it into India as well? So we say that for Indians as well, the same fundamental is applicable. It's more towards the quality side. What they say, they have mentioned in the, if I'm not wrong, table 2, standard one for all the IS standards. In the table 2, they have got the parameters on 8 or 10 parameters. Stick to the parameters for testing. irrespective you want it or not. Again, on the right hand side, there are two columns, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. So they're flexible there as well. So your product should fit into any of these grades which you declare you're claiming for. And yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. For example, you mentioned about aniline, rightly said. If we look at the, I think the Qatar is the side that's the biggest manufacturer, QEPD, if something is the company's name. So we were talking to them as well. What they say, why you want to analyze this parameter? It has no relevance to us. So things of that time comes in. Second difference that comes in is the experimentation procedure that has been followed in India within the BIS, it's much simpler compared to the high tech that they use. So what India says, we are not recommending you to use the high tech instrumentation part, which can have a cost implication on the Indians. So with the existing facility that you have, maybe, I mean, at least on the rudimentary, come to the base level of testing is what the government is trying to come across through the BIS. So there are parametric variations compared to the overseas manufacturers and what Indians do. That's the basic difference. In terms of the specifications, many times overseas supplier gives us a higher purity grade. Here we accept a lower purity grade. So suppose for aniline, if you're talking about, I don't know the exactly detail about it, but then it may be 99.8%, for example, suppose falls to grade 1 or 2. There they may give 99.9 and with water buoyancy, X, Y, Z parameters. Here that would be moisture can be also up to 2%. I do not know that. So that difference, of course, is there between the two standards. But what their insistence is, follow the basics, at least given in the Indian standards. And again, when we have giving our service to a couple of overseas petroleum units, they say we don't do it in-house. We give it a third party. What BIS says, there has to be an within the periphery of your factory, you need to have the testing facilities. So indirectly, they are saying, build up your own capability for testings as well. Thereby, they're trying to create awareness to the grassroots level problem, to the QA and QCs. Are there national standards for all the chemicals other countries have? Like BIS, we are trying to create a national standard for Indian standard. Other Japan. They do have, sir, because otherwise they will not allowing them. But then I don't think India has compared the other countries' standards while having our standards. But of course, I know that when the QCO is been drafted, because we have colleagues in our in my office who have been working extensively within the BIS in the past. So through them, we know there's a group of a big team of PhDs and maybe masters of science working on this quality aspect and trying to standardize the standard for India as well. But what is the process from where they source it? I mean, actually, I'm not aware of it. Sir. Sir. Sir.
So by trying to define standards which would, in effect, increase your input cost of your products into your final products,
Sir.
right? Second, there are some physical properties like a wet cake or a dry powder. When you define an XYZ substance, that you need minimum purity of 95%. In a dry form, it can be possible. In a wet cake form, it will be 75, 76%, for example. Now, you're increasing where the, excuse me, the wet cake is more suitable from the EHS point of view to use, because you're dissolving it, redissolving water only. That's one point. So you're increasing your carbon footprint. You're hurting your manpower by giving them exposure to powders, which is not required. And basically, what we fail to understand as a basis of BIS is it's a contract between a buyer and a seller. If I can use a 92% caustic, for example, rest being water, I don't need a 99.9% caustic soda. Then why you are imposing those standards onto a community which has to again
Mhm.
and be competitive. So this is a, you are hurting your own. It may have some significance. What you do with pharma is justified. Where it is not coming into the contact with human beings or consumption of human beings, why are the very stringent standards without understanding the adverse effect is being implemented? The recent example, I'll give you a specific example. MPD
Mhm, mhm.
was notified under BIS.
Yes.
From October 25th, the importers had to, either the exporter had to be BIS compliant.
Yeah.
Which could not be done for two reasons. Because of COVID in China, for example, they could not have a physical audit.
Yeah.
Second, the test procedures given by the Indian manufacturers were wrong deliberately. So how do you address these things?
So these, I mean, we were fortunate to at least attend the two of the meetings at DCPC, and at least in both, I was present physically. We could hear a lot of such topics being raised in front of the authorities, and what they say, I mean, as far as the quality is concerned, which you mentioned, they say if it is not meeting, then what we can do to raise that quality. They did not discuss about the cost implications in those concerns in front of the deputy directors, like, I don't know his name, from the DCPC advisory board, who were the two of those guys, from the DCPC was there. At the sixth floor of the DCPC office. I forgot their names. Vishal and then yeah. So these topics are raised there. I mean, I'm not declining to what we are saying. And also on the testing part, which you made absolutely right. And therefore, in those meetings, what the output which came out is, at least let us try to have some standards within our country, and let us set a benchmark for certain type of quality testing, instead of using a rudimentary method of testing, and not to straight adapt the high-end test methodologies.
The question is that you're trying to create a monopolistic situation within our country,
Yeah.
where you have a limited supply of these items, or any item for that example. You're killing down the competition.
Yeah.
And you expect us to grow a $5 trillion economy.
I mean, I agree with you, sir, because indirectly, this point was also discussed there, sir.
Like, as a small medium enterprise and as part of the association, our feeling, the general feeling happens is, in the name of quality, it is benefiting a few Indian manufacturers who are large manufacturers in the garb of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Mhm.
You create a monopoly. So without anti-dumping, you get a reservation of goods coming into India. So no, you cannot import at any cost. And those maybe one or two monopolistic companies can increase the price. They'll export it cheaper.
Mhm.
But in the domestic market, you have no choice, but you have to buy from them, because apne, and what you are saying, audit, is a long story. Kaun audit karta hai India mein? Do you tell me which company has been audited by BIS? I don't think so. For the next 10 years, it is happening. We don't have.
No, they do have the audit protocols, because we were.
The product which today also they are complying this audit, they never go for audit. And this committee has been there to those committees. I don't go to them. They don't even listen to it.
And another reason why I was asking, are they modeling against some standards? To best of my knowledge, I don't think so. There are German DIN standards for any chemicals. Are there any DIN standards? Like, there's a DIN for everything, right? Deutsch standards for everything. So are there a European standard in terms of specification? Because if we need to know, like, for example, the environmental regulation, COD, BOD, we have borrowed from Germany or European Union. Have we borrowed these standards from somebody, or we have created our own? That was my question.
Precisely, we are not aware, but now I get a good feel of it, that there is less of a representation happening and less of people are hearing us. I do agree with your concern, sir. And one point which strongly was observed by many people out there was that at the time they give the extension to any BIS deadlines, they come the last day and they give the it's been expired for the 6 months. So no supplier from overseas exports to you, because this is already in place, and they fear in case it is landing in the country, who is going to pay the damage for that. So there are many issues, and I therefore think so, sir, with due respect to all of you, that RRMA would be in a big way helping you to put a case across there. I strongly feel, because as far as the BIS, I'm not much sure because we did not do any advocacy right there. But for the ICMSR, we did do, and it is really going to help each one of us. Maybe Vaibhav, you can take this very strongly. Absolutely.
And it is hurting, actually it's hurting the mass majority of our industry is at the, for the benefit of few.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, sorry, I think. Okay, yeah. Certainly. No worries. I just want to just put across one small comment that there is a certain angle to situations, and then there is a assumption based angle to certain situations. Based on the assumption angle, as well as with the information that we have got from various stakeholders, when I presented the objectives of RRMA, the fourth bullet point there was in terms of the need, why RRMA type of associations are needed, is there is a lack of knowledge on the policymaker side as well. And this is exactly the point that we have discussed right now. When we assume that there is a lack of knowledge on the policymaker side, that's the point wherein we can bring in such kind of issues to have an open dialogue about what is feasible and what is not, and what kind of exemptions you should have. At times, for example, as Dr. Nair was also saying, he was sharing a couple of examples. I cannot take the name of those companies. They were overseas companies. And they said that the kind of testing you are requiring us to do under BIS, we don't even use these rudimentary methods anymore. We don't have the facility for such methods in our overseas laboratories, and those kind of audits needs to they need to happen in those premises outside of India. So they were like, we are not even testing with these methods in-house. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where RRMA like of an organization can help open up this kind of dialogue, so that everyone at least can share their opinion, and then we can come to terms about what should be done to achieve the purpose because of which all these standards and regulations are to be made. Yes. So moving ahead, I think that was my last slide. So it was, I think, good point in time for that discussion as well. But to save upon time, quickly I'll run through to give you an idea what are the upcoming RRMA activities. So you can see the first activity is we are doing a comprehensive capacity building and awareness program. Under that, chemical sector, this is the first awareness program that we are doing in Gujarat. The next steps would be that we want to do would be in other industry clusters in north, south, and east of India. There is already a cosmetics product webinar series, which gives you a complete idea about all sorts of registration and product registration requirements in cosmetics. It is happening online. It's a 5-webinar series. In addition to this, for your regulatory staff to learn at their own pace, we'll be introducing e-learning courses. The first one would be on ICMSR, followed by UK REACH, Turkey, BIS, so on and so forth. And as I said earlier, Certified Regulatory Professionals Program. We are already working for a Chartered Regulatory Professionals Program. We have developed the program. We have already done the tie-ups with the relevant universities as well as institutes in India. It will be an accredited program, and we'll be launching that along with those other institutes in Q2 2023. In addition to that, if you have any questions related to the Indian chemical regulations, mainly the draft stage that we have right now for ICMSR, as well as BIS and other standards, then we have a regulatory help desk called indianchemicalregulation.com. So most of the questions, answer to the questions you can get on that website. If not, you can send us a query, and if not in-house, we would send it out to the relevant experts that we have from other parties, and we'll try to answer your queries. Yes. So, yes. So my colleague will talk much like she has a full presentation on South Korea for around 15 minutes. So one of the other things that we discussed in this short interim panel discussion, I would say, is I'll try to address that. So what else RRMA is trying to do? Yes, we are trying to do policy dialogues. We are trying to do stakeholder awareness programs. We are trying to do introduce some courses as well as certified courses, so on and so forth. In addition to ECHA, there has been a comprehensive dialogue on chemicals and its policies and how should the regions or countries move forward. and what are the major concerns when it comes to national and international level. For that, Helsinki Chemical Forum has been the first and pioneering dialogue that was happening in Helsinki. It is in collaboration with ECHA. For the first time, we'll be bringing, as an organizer of this event, this dialogue to Asia's Asian Chemical Forum. GPC is the brand partner of this ACF conference, along with Helsinki Chemicals Forum. And with the recent update that I can share, there are 3 different programs that we'll be running. This is again a national level policy dialogue at the Asian level. What does the SAIChem agreement mean for Asia? They would be discussing this right after this conference, but we would have insights about what is going to be the probable discussion. In addition to this, we are talking about a lot of regulations, registrations, so on and so forth. But at the state of the art as of now, how to best tackle forever chemicals, as well as chemicals that has endocrine disruptor properties. The worldwide views in response to EU's classification proposal that we saw earlier in my slides, that would be discussed. And the third and the most important point, simplification of REACH-like regulations and their implementability in the Asian context, that would be addressed as well as discussed very comprehensively, because we should not be adapting with our eyes closed whatever something has been implemented in other countries, that there needs to be a simplified adaptation because there are developing economies, strong developing economies, and at the same time we are trying to do this. Frankly speaking, Europe did not do it when it was a developing economy, right? So for those causes, we need to have this understanding about how to simplify these regulations if we have to do a trade-off between there is no hampering of industry growth, as well as also we try to safeguard environment and human health. In this conference, we'll have CII as a partner, as an NGO, Toxic Links also as key members. And this is the website of Asian Chemical Forum. And that's all for my presentation for today. Thank you. Yes. So without further ado, I think we are running short on time. I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Miraj Mert Pelister. He's the head of Turkey business operations from GPC Turkey. And more importantly, in the context of this presentation, he's an expert on Turkey REACH regulation as well. Miraj.
Thank you very much, Dr. Devan. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. So we all know that Turkey REACH is an interesting topic nowadays, especially the deadline approaching for those who know. We will try to cover as much as possible, with also as basic as possible so that we use our time efficiently. And if you have questions about the presentation or about anything about Turkey REACH, we can also discuss those ones. But in general, what we will do is we will discuss what KKDAK regulation is, what it means, what the scope of it is, and the timeline. We will discuss the timeline, which is the most important point right now. And then we will also discuss how we can be compliant to this regulation when we are exporting to Turkey. So the KKDAK name is abbreviation that stands for actually registration, evaluation, and authorization and restriction of chemicals, which is also the name of the EU REACH regulation, as you know. And the reason for that is that the reason for the resemblance is that when it came into force on June 23rd, 2017, it was a result of a policy for EU adaptation, because Turkey is an applicant country to EU, European Union. There are some adaptation policies. So this is a result of that policy. And the competent authority for this regulation is the the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization, and Climate Change. And this regulation has merged and replaced 3 main regulations, one of them being the bylaw on safety data sheets. And that replacement is still going on because that regulation is still in action, but it will be outdated once this year ends. So by 2024, it will be only KKDAK regulation that is regulating the authoring of safety data sheets. And the other 2 regulations that has already been replaced and merged by KKDAK regulation is the bylaw on inventory and control of chemicals and the bylaw on restriction and ban of hazardous chemicals. And KKDAK regulation has borrowed a lot of provisions from those 2 regulations. That's why those regulations are now outdated and completely replaced by KKDAK. The scope of KKDAK is actually quite large. It covers all the chemicals on their own in mixtures or in articles. But also there are some substances or some cases that are out of its scope. So when we are talking about, for example, radioactive substances or waste materials, or when we are discussing about the transportation of dangerous goods, these topics are out of the scope of KKDEC. In those cases, KKDEC does not regulate those substances or those topics. Also, the nano-isolated intermediates are not covered by this regulation. And the substances that are used in the defense industry as well, they are not covered by this topic due to some security concerns as well. And again, the most important topic about KKDEC regulation is the timeline, as we are fast approaching to the deadline. When it began, the regulation came into force in 2017. It had a 6 months break until the first phase started. And that first phase was the pre-registration phase that started on 23rd of December, 2017. And during that phase, which lasted until 31st of December, 2020, the most important part was notifying which substances are being used, in which tonnage bands, and by whom. So it was a mostly simple notification of these substances, as well as the classification, labeling, and packaging information notification. And although this first phase of pre-registration has ended, at the end of this phase, the ministry has informed everyone that the notification of the substances, meaning that the pre-registrations can continue as late pre-registrations until the end of the registration period, which is the next phase of the regulation. And during this phase, of course, the most important part is submitting the registration dossiers, which include all the details, all the data from the substances regarding their ecotoxicological, toxicological, and physicochemical properties. So this submission of the registration dossier can also include the chemical safety assessment or the chemical safety report, as well as the safety data sheets, and if needed, the test proposals as well. And the last step of this regulation will be after the end of this year. As I mentioned, the deadline is the end of this year, 2023. The last step will be the post-registration phase, which the most important part is keeping all the information up to date regarding the registration dossiers, as well as if there's any evaluation initiated by the ministry regarding these submitted dossiers, then we need to also keep up the communication regarding this evaluation. And also, there's a list of substances in KKDEC regulation, which is currently a blank list, but it will be populated by the beginning of 2024, which is the substances for authorization. Those substances will require a permit to be manufactured or imported to Turkey. And for that one, after the 1st of January 2024, after that list is populated, the permit application for those substances will be needed. And to talk about the current situation, what's happening under this regulation in Turkey is that the ministry has informed us in our meetings that the new circular will be published by the ministry to update some provisions about the regulation. One of them is being the new criteria for owner representatives. So currently, any company in Turkey can be an owner representative, but the ministry wants to also limit these owner representative capabilities to certain capabilities. So we don't know which criteria will be there, but the criteria will be announced by the new circular. And also the ministry has announced that there will be an upper limit to the letter of access costs, which is required to be paid in order to join the registration dossier. And also the ministry has informed that there will be an earlier deadline for the lead registrants, so that they have to submit the dossier before the actual deadline, so that the other members of the SIF can join this joint submissions in time. And also another important point here is that if there's no lead registered for the substance, then the ministry will appoint one in time, which means that the ministry is trying really hard to push all the industry to be compliant before the deadline. And the reason for that is in our meetings, we have discussed multiple times, we have also requested, because as the interest of our clients, the companies that we represent, that if the deadline will be postponed, But the ministry has strictly said every time, every single time, even in face-to-face meetings with the ministry, that the deadline of the end of 2023 will not be postponed. So they are trying all they can in order to help the potential registrants also to be compliant in time. And again, one of those points is that if there's no lead registrant, it means that the registration dossier is not being prepared. In that case, the ministry will appoint one company from the CIF. And the ministry has informed us that the latest numbers we got is that 504 registrations has been done by October. We know that this number has increased since then. It has been some months. We don't know the current number because the ministry does not disclose this information easily or periodically. And then, as I mentioned, the authorization list will be available in 2024. And one question that has come before from the industry is that how this monitoring will happen of the chemicals that are produced or imported, or if they're restricted or if they're in the authorization list, is that the ministry said they have already begun the monitoring for the restricted substances. And also they're collaborating with the Ministry of Trade in Turkey for monitoring these substances when also they are being imported. And one recent update from the ministry is that, again, in order to help the potential registrants to be compliant in time with this regulation before the deadline, that for this year only, the chemical safety report can be uploaded in English, which means that if there's a chemical safety report that was prepared for EU REACH before, that can be used for now, for this year only. And the next year, the Turkish translation has to be made. Another point I will quickly cover this is that in order to register in Turkey, there has to be a joint submission unless there's a valid reason. And in order to move forward with the joint submission is that there's a mandatory group of companies called the CIFs. CIF stands for Substance Information Exchange Forum. So any company who has pre-registered by default goes into these CIFs. CIF means that any company that wants to register the same substance, so they form these CIFs. If they want to form another organization, another group, in order to share the data costs and share the responsibility about registration, then they can also form consortia. But the most important point of those both in common is that they need to be transparent, they need to be fair, and their aim is to share the responsibility of data production as well as the data costs. So in order to register, we need to know in Turkey what to register. And some substances we know are exempted from registration obligation, although these substances might still need other obligations under KKDK regulation, even if they're exempted from registration. To quickly cover them, if a substance is registered before in Turkey and it's recycled, because it was registered before, then it's exempted. The same way, if it's exported from Turkey and re-imported again by the same supply chain, again, they're exempted. Substances used in food and feedstock, substances that are less than 1 ton per year in volume, substances that are used in biocides and plant protection products, if only they're listed in the active substances of those relevant regulations in Turkey, substances in human or veterinary medicines, and the ones that are mentioned in annexes 4 and 5 of the regulation, which are naturally occurring substances, unless they're chemically modified. So if they're chemically modified, their molecule has changed, then they still need to be registered under this regulation. And polymers are exempted from registration, but their monomers has to be registered. So if you're exporting to Turkey a polymer, then you have to register the monomers instead. Also, the substances that are on-site and transported isolated intermediates, then these are exempted from the full registration, but they still have to be registered. So they have a special type of registration, which is simplified. So in order to move forward with the registration, what we need to do is, again, a joint submission. For joint submission to happen, first, lead registrant has to be elected or appointed in the CIF. The important part here is that if it's elected, at least it's the choice of the CIF and it's the initiation of one company in the CIF. If it's appointed, it's by the ministry. So we can make sure that the company who is willing to take the lead already wants to register, already wants to produce this data, But when it's appointed, then of course, we don't know how well they can handle it, because the company who wishes to take the lead is already confident. So it's important to, if we want to be compliant and if we see that our substance, our SIF doesn't have a lead resistant, we need to maybe take initiation. We need to be active, be proactive actually, in order to be compliant, to make sure that our joint submission dossier is properly made. And once that is done, then the joint submission dossier is sent. And once it's registered, then the members can join this dossier. And for members to join, there are several steps to take. First, they need to look and agree on the SIF agreement. And also if there's a data sharing agreement given by the lead registrant, then also they need to sign this agreement as well. And after that, they need to pay their share of the data costs, because the lead registrant has probably paid the costs for all those data that is from the studies. And if the member has to join, then they need to pay their share, which is mentioned in the letter of access cost. And after that steps are done, then the lead registrant has to approve the member on KKS system, which is the chemical registration system that is used for compliance activities under KKDK regulation. And after that step is complete, finally, the member can submit their member dossier. So what do we need to submit in order to be compliant with KKDK regulation? Apart from all the data from studies like physicochemical, toxicological, ecotoxicological properties, but the most important part where we are sending as a member dossier is the information regarding us and our substance. That means that we need to identify our substance correctly. For that, we need to provide spectral data. And also we need to provide information regarding the uses of our substance. And for that, we use, just like in EU REACH, some standard codes like PROC codes, ERC codes. And the ministry says that out of 3 categories, which are the industrial uses, the end user or the consumer uses, and the professional uses, out of these 3 categories, at least one of them should be filled in the dossier in order to be accepted. And then, of course, the estimated tonnage is important to decide on the tonnage band, which are 4 categories in Turkey, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, and 1,000 plus. Also, the classification and safe use information has to be presented. And again, one requirement can be the chemical safety report that is required for substances for more than 10 tons per annum. And the KKDK regulation, different from the EU REACH or other regulations, forces that the person who's certified and accredited to prepare this, which is called the Certified Chemical Safety Assessment Expert, to prepare this document. Similarly, in safety data sheets, also this certified person has to prepare the data sheet, safety data sheet, in order to be compliant under KKDK regulation. And if you look at the official fees, we can see that they are not as high as, for example, if you know from EU REACH, that for even a large company, 1,000 plus, it's approximately 1,500 euros. But for SME, it's much reduced. These numbers are given in euros, but the ministry publishes them in Turkish lira. So according to the currency exchange rate, they can differ. And once the dossiers are submitted, ministry takes approximately 3 weeks to see if there's any missing part in the submission or not. If there's any missing part, then the ministry gives a chance to correct those informations and gives a new deadline for that submission. And if there's any, if the information is already correct, then the ministry accepts it or not. And in general, there are some responsibilities that everyone has to take. One being the SIF participants for preparing the correct information about the uses and their substance and declaring their SME status, which is a self-declaration currently. And the lead registrant has to prepare the dossier in time, as mentioned before, so that to enable the other members, other potential registrants to join in time. And this is all from me today. If you have any questions, we can also take them. Thank you.
Before asking any questions, our full sympathy to the people who are affected in the earthquake. And please convey our condolences to those who has lost their life in the Turkey. And I don't know what is the update about the things, but we wish and we pray that everything gets normal as early as possible.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. And I would like to also thank on behalf of all the Turkish people to the Indian nation and Indian people that India was one of the first respondents to the earthquake. And India has currently sent more than 200 people in order to be active in the research and search and rescue operations. And India has set up a huge field hospital. So we thank the Indian nation. Thank you.
If anyone has any. So does anyone has any questions regarding Turkey Reach? Obviously, Miraj is there with us for the rest of the day, so you can ask him the questions later. But a short question, how many of you are exporting to Turkey right now? Have you done the pre-registrations there? Do you know, or have you done the registrations yet? How many of the companies have completed the registrations yet?
The amount, the volume used in food products is exempted from registration, but the other uses for the same substance is still obliged to register.
Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't registered, obviously we have talked about the deadline, but inside that Miraj has talked a lot about how the registration would work, what are the different factors that would affect the different stages of the registration, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, then obviously you can talk to Miraj once again.
Highest quantity of dyestuff is exported to Turkey from Gujarat. So many members are there, they are exporting to Turkey. That is the main market.
Absolutely, sir. And so before going to the next presentations, we would like to have a slight update in the agenda that we'll be taking a short demo of a portal before we move on to the next stages. And the next step would be to have the panel discussion pre-poned before the presentations. And the idea behind that portal is also, we don't want to bore you with too much technical information, too much details of the regulation, but at the same time, provide you information which is directly actionable. So I would like to invite Dr. Nair as well as Mangesh to help me with the portal. And by the time they are setting it up, I can tell you that, as I said, GPC is the knowledge partner for different organizations. And at the same time, if you remember my presentation, there are more than 45 different countries across the globe, which has different types of regulatory requirements. And few 7 or 8 major countries are there, which has implemented the REACH kind of regulation, and we are all possibly affected by that. So in order to share the knowledge in the most accessible and actionable way format, RRMA has collaborated with GPC, obviously they are the knowledge partners, for this portal, which is a global regulatory intelligence portal. Now, you may think that, this is coming from a company, so it's a commercial angle to it, and they are, it's their portal. But just to clarify, before we get into the details of this portal and what it can do for you, as well as how it can make your lives easier in terms of information, I would like to clarify that with GPC, we have an internal understanding regarding RRMA, as well as this portal, that any member of RRMA who would have access to this portal, they would obviously have it for free, and that would be free forever. And with that, I would like to give it to Dr. Nair, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vaibhav. You mentioned about Turkey and Korea, and I could see a couple of hands going up there for Turkey. And Saab, you mentioned is the main business from Ahmedabad, and I know for sure goes to Turkey. So if there are volunteers to go for live, it's best to have a live session. We can have 5 or 6 maximum cast numbers because Saab maybe need to go a bit early. If they're sitting, I'm more than happy to have an extensive session on this because nothing like live goes good and it becomes more interactive. And the purpose of the RRM initiative is to have an interactive awareness session. Any volunteers from here to share the cast numbers, we can put that cast within the Turkey and South Korea or any other country of your interest. Any volunteers with the cast number? If not, yes, madam. Mangesh, can I help you? I mean, request you to put the cast numbers there and while we say.
Yeah, I have the cash number. Is 106 dash
106
dash
dash
89 dash 8
89 dash
8.
8. Which country, madam?
It's for Turkey and Korea both.
Turkey and Korea both. So once you punch in this cash number, I'm basically one has to log into the system. Once you log into the system, there are a lot of links there. You can see up there sectors. Then you've got the regulatory regions. You've got the compliance advisor. Then regulatory briefs, deadlines, events, and so on. So if you want to go for any cash search, go to the chemical compliance advisor. Select, for example, Turkey. Yes. Put the cash number once again there and submit. Once you do that, it does an internal search because this has a lot of data backups.
Okay.
And this is, to my understanding, the latest data that goes into it. You can see there some information appeared already on the screen. So what it says, based upon the ICA availability, the substance falls in the category to be considered as an SVSC. Is that true? Are you aware of its substance of very high concern? Okay. So since you're planning that, it's going to Europe. If you're also sending to Europe, it is substance very high concern. So it's a substance very high concern.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of this cash number which you asked us to do.
Yes.
Okay. But however, within Turkey, what it says, please note that this is based on the criteria provided by ICA and not Turkish authorities. However, it's very likely that it will be the same as under KKDIK,
Okay.
stating that this substance has a full possibility to be included within the substance of very high concern. Today, there are 233 substances, if I'm not wrong, within the SVSC list, which gets updated every 6 months within European reach. Therefore, the same applicability could go also into KKDIK.
So
for
what
Turkey.
exactly it means? So we have to take this Turkey reach also, or
Yes,
because
as
it
of
says
now,
it's
the obligation
implied
is, as of now, the obligation within Turkey is, you have, if you have done the pre-registration, I mean, you want to
Registration.
export. Okay. Since you're not in the pre-registration, deadline has gone, but still you can avail the late pre-registration option, which
Okay.
is not official, but still they're accepting it. So once you do that, today we are in month of February, until December 31st, you can contribute the business.
Okay.
However, if you're planning for a future business, better get this substance registered before the deadline, which is 31st December 2023. Can I know what is the volume you are planning to export?
So that volume will be around 2000 KT per annum, 2 KT per annum. That is 2000 metric ton.
Which company, madam?
Make Money Fine Chem.
Make Money Fine Chem. Okay. My team also will make a note of it in case I am not in a position to address it full here. And if you're interested to know further,
Mhm.
you can please write to us or our team can talk to you. But then 2000 tons per annum means it's a substantial volume. A lot of data has to go for it. Your first thing we should do is please go for a late pre-race without undue delay.
Okay. For both Korea and Turkey.
Korea, we can come next.
Okay.
Turkey is more important, it seems, for you because it has a deadline very close by.
Okay.
Okay. So once you, madam, you do the LPR for that, If there are other people also who have done the similar type of a registration, pre-registration there, you will know how many guys are already into that business in that country. The second benefit you can get. This is not in the open domain. So once you do the LPR, only then your OR can help you out with the information. Otherwise, I will not be knowing it in case I have not done this pre-registration for any of my clients.
Okay.
It's not openly available. So that's very important to note. Second thing is how it will take shape in the future is still not known because KKDIK, I mean Turkish Reach, has not specified any details about the SVSC substances. Within Europe, there is a restriction. It's going to
Yes.
come up soon. But within Turkey, it's still an open thing. We do not know much about it.
Okay.
So for Korea, maybe same thing would be applicable, but then 2000 tons means the deadline is already gone. First register and then
Yes,
export.
deadline is already gone.
So first register, then export.
Yeah.
And it should be also within the PEC list. What is the chemical name of this? Can you go to Korea, please? It could be in the PEC list.
Okay.
PEC is the priority existing chemicals. Yeah, it's Korea. So what it says, there's no matching, but that means it's not in their inventory list at all.
So it is not required.
So it's a new chemical there.
It's a
New chemical means first register and then export.
Oh, directly you have to
Yeah,
register.
yeah. Then you have to register and then no, there's no option for pre-registration there for you. This is manufactured in the Dahej plant or Ahmedabad plant?
It's manufactured in the Dahej plant.
Dahej plant. We met your colleagues from Dahej. Also Dankleshwar, Prashant Bhai was there. MOL.
Oh, MOL, okay. MOL.
You're from Make Money Organics, right?
Uh,
Fine, Kim, I'm
Make
sorry.
Money Organics, a parent company.
We're all same group. So I mean, for me, everybody is one, you know. Yeah. Any question, any second case? We can take 3 or 4
Thank you
cases.
so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, madam. Any case from anybody? Sir, you are Turkey export, right, sir? One case from your side to. Sir, आपने को ने case आपको जो लिया आपने.
17095
17095
-24
-24
-8.
-8. Which country, sir? Turkey? Turkey. It is not an SVSC. So the clear indication is if you have done the pre-registration, continue business till 31st December. If you want to continue beyond 31st, you should register it. Time limit is only 10 months left. But have you already checked whether there is a lead registered for this option or not? You haven't checked. Okay. So something for a importance. If there is no lead registered for this substance, okay, that means the position is vacant. And if until it's vacant, you will not know who is going to register it. But if the product is substance of very key business strategy for you, would suggest you to take the lead position.
Okay.
Now, don't be scared कि lead मतलब बहुत कुछ करना
No,
पड़ेगा.
no, it doesn't matter, not an
Doesn't
issue.
matter.
Yeah.
Perfectly right. So you please, in case you have not done it, you may contact any consultant you know for that matter.
Okay.
Ask them to do the pre-registration. Once they do it, they will come to know कोई और है कि नहीं इसके अंदर. किसने लीड लिया रहेगा तो उससे आप LOA का कॉस्ट ले लीजिए. कॉस्ट लेके आपका टनेज बैंड के हिसाब से आप रजिस्टर करा दीजिए बिफोर डेडलाइन. अगर कोई नहीं है तो आपका जो भी आप कंसल्टेंट से बात करोगे उनको बोलो कि आप वैकेंट है तो मुझे लीड लेना है.
Okay.
ठीक है. That would be the approach for that. And tonnage is how much, sir? What is the tonnage?
100 to 1000.
It requires a lot of data.
Yeah.
So it's already in the European market. This product is going.
Yeah,
So
already
then the
going.
pre-registration-
And it is, yes, 100 to 1000, between
You are
100 to
registered
1000.
there.
Yeah, already registered.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's a registered.
So
product.
this also is an option for that. So we may know who is in the European market, the lead for your substance. So might be they have done the same thing in Turkey.
In Turkey,
Possibly.
yeah, possibly.
Sir, आपने क्या sir?
36
12236-86-1. Which country, sir? Turkey. And see your company, sir, I could not get. Are J Chemicals, yeah. is for 1236. Yeah. So again, the substance information for this is it has to be pre-registered and then do the registration. There is no other obligation as such because it doesn't follow the category of an SVSC. But if you have done the pre-registration, you should know what is tonnage band. And in koi lead resident hoy, so it is good for you. If nobody is there, take the lead position. Lead is not something to worry upon because वो पहले phobia था कि मैं lead resident में data कहाँ से लाऊंगा, आज ऐसा कुछ नहीं है sir. I mean, whoever is your OR should be in a position to help you out. Last question, any last case from anybody? Okay, I can just help you to go to the sectors. If you can help me. Look at the sectors we have got here. Go to the right, left, this sector. Go to sectors, yeah. So this has information about agrochemical, chemicals, circular economy, cosmetics, food contact material, and medical devices. So this portal gives you so much information free of cost, provided it's an RRMA member. And it's for the members, it's an awareness program, and GPC is voluntarily giving that to them. And if you go in the agrochemical, I mean, let us check Saab is here. So medical, I can try to take that risk. I'm taking risks, sir. I don't know if it's developed or not, because you are the expert in that sector. Go to the medical, if it's developed, let us see. Go to the medical one. So in medical, it speaks about China, Europe, India, Japan, and US. If you go to the cosmetics, please, it speaks still more countries within that. So I could know Nilicon is here, who also gives into food and cosmetics, right? So you can go to circular economy. It gives about Europe and India. So likewise, now if you can go to the regulated regions, it covers so many regions for that matter. And within each country, it tries to cover all that possible to be explained upfront here. So this is something good for all the industry members, especially those who are into the regulatory sectors, because I know personally I have been moving around Ahmedabad since 2008. I have traveled across Ottawa, Naroda, and Ottawa, every door. I know what's happening this side and that side. From then I was saying, even today I'm saying, we do business good, yes, but we need to increase our knowledge as well, because that's something we are all lagging behind. And all these regulatory compliance as on today is taken care of the marketing guys. And the marketing guys pas inquiry aaya je, le tarat R&D pass api de. And those guys don't know what to do with that. They ask the neighbors and they somehow try to fill it. In case any issue comes, it goes to litigation and then pay the penalties. So as simple line, at least start one person in the company should know what is regulation. Humble request. Like, and if one person knows, he let him narrate it to his teammates maybe once in 6 months and attend all the free webinars which you get across the country. Thank you so much. Since no other questions, we can then go to the second session and on the panel discussion. Bobby, can you please come forward?
Thanks a lot, Dr. Nair. So we would go ahead with the panel discussion. And just before that, I have a small announcement. More than an announcement, it's a request, I would say, that in your package, the bags that you have got, there are 3 papers. So the first one looks something like this. If you can fill this in, this basically has on the left-hand side, the list of topics of your interest. And on the top, you have the different countries. So if you can tick mark with your contact details in this, this would give us a very good idea about your specific interest in future. And then we can cater those topics in a much better way. In addition to this, as I talked about, I mean, there are different events that we'll be organizing. There will be a Chartered Regulatory Professionals program. There is this database, which we guarantee that, you know, that it will never be paid for you as a RRMA member. So there are 2 forms. One is for individual registration in RRMA and one for company registration. Both these types, in fact, all the different types of memberships of RRMA are 100% free for first year. 1 month before the membership ends, you will get an email if you would like to continue. And then if you continue, then only there is a nominal fees, which you can look at the website. It's available, I think, for the individual membership, it's 4,000 rupees per year. But if you submit this form as of today as a company or as an individual, it's a free membership. You can understand if these kind of programs are of use to you. If yes, you can continue with the membership. If not, then also it's fine. So thanks a lot. Yes, so we have office in Nagpur. Yes, and yes, yes. Hmm. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I request our dignitaries, Shri Yogesh Bhai Parekh, Dr. Jaimin Vasa, Shrenik Marchant, and Shri Sumit Singh Brar to please come on dais for the panel discussion. And I request Dr. Jayachandran Nair to please moderate the discussion.
That's something. Thank you. So I better be down so I can see all of you then. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, one and all. Before I start, I know we are running short of time, and everybody has other commitments. I was just talking to Dr. Jaimin Saab, and then he has some committed time to someone. So he humbly requested, can I go a bit early? I should at least take one question, and then he may please, sir. He would love you to be here the full time, but then he has to meet both the ends. Yeah. So
Thanks.
on that ground, sir, with your kind permission, can we start the panel discussion with you? If it's okay to all of us.
Yeah.
Sir, you heard us talking about RRMA, and you heard us about Turkey. There are two more topics for discussion. One is South Korea, and second one is Europe, which of course we do not speak right now here. But as an industry association, especially from the GCA, and you are connected very well with other industry sectors as well. What is that industry need to do with all these compliances coming up so that the business is not affected?
Thanks. Nice question. Let me tell you first that when EU REACH came regulation, GCA was the first association to invite the talk on EU REACH at that time. And we had kept the same kind of event at GCCA only, calling the members and what are going to be the EU REACH and its effect. I personally believe that all regulatory compliances are must if you really want to do your business safely, because the day by day, the compliance is in every field and every matter is going to increase. And it is earlier I was feeling that this kind of EU REACH and compliances are coming because they want to protect their own country's manufacturers and making us to export there at a higher price. But later on, when going much in detail, I could find out the various norms of the chemicals and hazardness. Everybody wants to restrict it. And that is the reason this compliances and regulatory is there. I'm really impressed by the way Mr. Diwan has given the presentation. Turkey has been given the presentation. I believe that. And slowly, as you mentioned, Diwan, slowly and gradually, many countries will come into this kind of regulations. So all associations and our Gujarat Chamber parent body should take initiative to make sure, and rather our friend
Brarji, yeah.
he is the person
from
who is coordinating exports of chemicals from India. So I think together, association, chamber, Chemexil, we should also take up this matter, because slowly and gradual, up till now, we were only looking for the EU. But now, since Korea and Turkey is coming, I feel that we all association along with the parent body, we should be aware if we want to maintain this export of chemicals and dyestuff, which is in the bulk quantity from Gujarat and from particularly Ahmedabad. So I think that everybody should be, and such kind of awareness should be really repeatedly, we should do it through associations, through you, since you come quite often to Ahmedabad, we should make best use of yours also. So I would request chamber also that we should take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. That was a clean, I mean, takeaway. More than what we heard, I think what Dr. Saab said meant a lot to all of us. Let us take the positive stride. The regulation which is coming up, it improves a lot of things in-house as well. Thank you so much, sir. Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Sir, if you kindly permit, I would like to the second question, which was coming in mind on the Turkey, and you were quite proactive to tell us that the maximum exports from Gujarat to Turkey happens from this place, and you also were contributing by giving a cash numbers to check upon the Turkey's inputs. Sir, the deadline is very close. Now, you have two roles to play, sir, for me and for all of us, from the GCCI and as an industrialist. Okay, what is that you are doing? I mean, we are doing this is a straight question, to meet the deadlines, and how confident you are that you'll meet the deadlines?
You see that here MSME sector is much more, and they are exporting their product in large quantity to Turkey. Turkey is also dependent on the Indian market. It is not so that they are not depending on our products. What happened in European countries, the charges of this facility is much more. If somebody making one product and somebody is making another product, so same product they have to give to further charges. So many companies are manufacturing 10 products, 15 products, 20 products, but they have to give the charges according to that one. That is much more for that one. Chemexil is giving the discount on that one. That is another thing, but that is much more. And also they are depending on our product, even though we have to pay this type of charges. So they should also consider for these things also, and they should take the charges according the product wise, not to the separate charges to be taken, or company wise if they are manufacturing 10 products. Otherwise, what happened if I am manufacturing 10 products and he is manufacturing on one product, he cannot export it. He has to give to me and I have to export it. So large sector will be benefited for that one, and a small sector will not benefited for that one. This thing also we have to tell them. This is one fact thing. And I think so, if Chemexil will give the graph, so in Turkey, mainly most of the 100 or 150 units that bulk exporting to the dyestuff industries. What are the quantity? They are depending black hoe, yellow hoe, green hoe, what are the blue, all products. The maximum hub is Turkey. Second, also Korea is also there, but that is on below than the Turkey. But this Indonesia, then this Turkey, then Korea, and in Bangladesh and China. China has stopped this beta chloro pigment. They have brought up the anti-dumping duty. So many manufacturers of the pigment, they are suffering for that one. This is also one major problem. And so many bulk quantity beta is going from here to China. Now they have brought 18% to 78%. Shainik bhai, barabar? 18%, those who have registered, some of them registered, and maximum members they have not registered. Those who are not registered, that is 78% duty is there. And those who are registered, that 18% is going on.
Something like what we have in the toll tax. I mean,
Yes.
on the roads. If you are having the what do you call the tag, then you pay the nominal fees, the
Yes.
fast tag, and if you don't have the fast tag, you pay double the amount.
Yes, that is the problem.
So that made everyone to go with the fast
And I
tag.
think so in Turkey 2 years back GDMA and they have already told them, and maximum people, those who are exporting, they have registered their name.
Right.
And in every country they have registered their name, that there is no problem. But I think so implementation has not come yet.
One good part is, they have tried to do the registry with the substances wise, not product wise. Because if you do one substance registration or two substance registration, maybe you can manufacture 5 or 6 products depending upon the formulation that you do. Because many of the products that goes from Ahmedabad for from GDMA are mixtures. So in that way, it has helped a lot of industry, because if they do 3 or 4 substance, they can tell 5 or 6 products to those countries. Right, sir, and thank you for insight to you. So when you're talking about Chemixil, obviously Brarji is my next person to whom I should talk to. So what is that you're trying to do to ensure that maximum people get the benefit of the exports?
So,
And second question as continues to that, which I have been getting from all the locations that I've been traveling. What it says, there is a upper limit of 2 crores. Subject to 50% of the total expense in a calendar year. So the question which we get a personal to you, sir, is it country specific or without the country specific? Like if I've got like for Korea, for Turkey, is 2 crore the upper cap for Korea, 2 crore for Turkey, is it so?
right. So first of all, I completely agree with Yogesh sir and what he mentioned that, Chemixil should make the representations, and we often do make the representations that we receive from the members and senior members like Yogesh sir and Harish Bhutaji and Anil Jain sir ji. So we keep on doing that, and we also urge our member exporters to, keep on giving us the feedback as well. So, it would also encourage us to gain the knowledge and gain the pulse of the business currently and what are the issues being faced. And regarding this registration charges, most of you might be aware that there's a MI scheme from Government of India, under which 50% of the registration charges are being reimbursed back to the member exporter. And the upper cap is of 2 crores, which Mr. Nair correctly mentioned. And it is cumulative, unfortunately. It's not per country. It is per member, per exporter per annum, 2 crores, any number of countries you apply to. So the upper cap is of 2 crores rupees. And the process is very simple. Few of you might have already availed it as well. So the process is online. You have to submit 15-20 documents, that basic documents, not that complicated. And based on that, we make the submissions, and the process has been done. The only thing that you have to adhere to is the 45 days limit, which has been specified by the government. So the day you get yourself registered, within 45 days, you have to submit your request for subsidy. So that you have to please ensure, because as we all know that government works on certain procedures and certain protocols, so we have to follow that. So that is the main thing. And apart from that, if you need any further information, I'm here. You can get in touch with me as well, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Brarji, but that was a good insight, right? I mean, at least I got my doubts cleared. Now I am confident, because we are a lot of clients, 1,500 plus clients. And if each one asks me one day, I mean, this is a good reply to me as well. I mean, thank you so much, boss, because that gives a clarity, and then accordingly, maybe each one of them can plan their registration to avail this 2 crores. अभी कोरिया डेडलाइन बाकी है, तो टर्की पहले कर लो, और अभी मार्च आ रहा है, तो वो ये कैलेंडर ईयर में फाइनेंशियल का ले ले बेनिफिट. So the remaining 10 months you avail the next calendar year. So the input and takeaway from what he said is that please plan your registration for Turkey without delay. I see some hands going up. मुझसे के हिसाब से सर जी आपके लिए क्वेश्चन आ रहा है सर.
Yeah, good evening, sir. My name is Nitesh Dev from Make Money Organics.
जी जी.
Sir, what is the time limit to clear the claims
So that
under MAI? Because what
हाँ.
we understand that we have filed 2 claims,
हाँ.
but none of them is clear as of now.
So, sir, if you are asking after the submission, sir, that is up to the government. There is no.
That is what I'm
spec-
telling you, because
yeah.
whenever we give a call, that it is up to the government when they will be
Yes,
finalized.
yes. Unfortunately, sir, we
So it is
cannot.
linked to government.
Because we submit
budget?
your, yes, yes, it is the government which gives you the subsidy. So we are the facilitators to process that subsidy. So you give the application to us, we submit it to the government, to the concerned authorities.
But sir, मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा अगर सब
नहीं
file
मिलेगा।
किया है?
सर, वो
क्योंकि उसमें बजट खत्म हो जाए कि नहीं मिलेगा ऐसा नहीं ना
सर
फिर?
गवर्नमेंट आपको पता है सर वो आपके डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो मंगवाती है, that is why I mentioned, you know, एक
Sir, I can help you. I can help you, sir.
सर
in
वो
this case.
डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो होते हैं वो वेरीफाई करते हैं, रेटिफाई
नहीं, sir,
करते
आपकी बात
हैं.
सही है, because we filed on
So,
time also.
Yeah,
I can help you addressing that because
yes,
at
please.
Vapi,
yeah.
we had Mokashi Sahib along with us. We're so
Yes,
fortunate.
Yes.
He is the chairman of Chemixil and he voluntarily told what you're asking. Okay. He told there are a couple of applications still pending and the numbers are in 4 digits.
Oh.
Okay. To what I recollect what he told there. It's in 4 digits, but they are trying to push the authorities to get at the earliest the things. Anyways, something wrong in the document, they should already inform you. So
Yes.
if the document is correct, rest assured they are doing the best
Correct.
to get the money to your hands.
તેમ છતાં JCCI માં મોકલી આપજો. અમે અહીંયાથી ફરી recommendation માં મોકલી આપે કે જો તાત્કાલિક થઈ જાય, બરાબર?
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, that we might be aware that road tap scheme was also announced. And 28 and 29, the major chapters were, you know, missed out, and it was a shock and surprise for all of us. But we have been following up. So that is an answer, indirect answer to your question, that we keep on trying. It's up to the government, you know, and they also have their certain agenda or certain, you know, other factors to consider, which we don't know. So based on that only they, you know, work on it. So 28 and 29, as you all know that in December it was been announced. So yes, in December. So please be patient, and companies like Make Money can be patient, if I can say so. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, from Make Money, and thank you, Brarji, for taking those questions. I'm going to do the toughest thing for me because I'm going to ask the next question to the person who is my mentor, my guru, Shrenik ji. Sir, it's not a simple question, but I'm pretty sure in the audience, whosoever is sitting here, will definitely say yes. What has to be done for that? All of them do business. They make good quality products. When it comes for the sales, before a single gram is been bought, you get a 10-15 page document, which has to be first filled by the regulatory person. Only if that is done through, then the product has been purchased. It's a raw material request form from the your clients to you, and it's mandatory for that to be fulfilled. How is that US, because he is also entrepreneur, he is also helping GCA, GDMA, GCCI, and I heard this from everybody, sir. What is your advice to all of us that how we can make that life simpler so that the form is correctly filled and the business happens? Guru is the toughest question.
It is not tough, actually. It is practical question. Thanks for asking this question because I have faced so many times such things in my life also that multinational always ask for such questionnaire. And when you have to do these all things, you have to actually give your own product basically to the laboratory that this is what is required to be tested first, correctly tested, correctly, first you check whether you are buying the right quality of raw materials, because that has helped us into a big way of in even sorting out our effluent problems. So it is very much must that when they have made this regulatory perfect, they have considered that particular things in their mind that this is what they require, and it can be only isolated out by using the right raw material. So I believe that this should be sorted out in a perfectly scientific manner, uh, where you have to go for the raw material testing first, then your final product. Even in that, you don't use the extra raw material anywhere. You use to do the scientific balance of molecular weight to molecular weight, and your process timings and processing things, because in many cases I have seen that even during my process timings and the crystallization timings, also many other types of ingredients comes out from the our products, which doesn't form the correct crystals of your dye or the pigment. So I think this is the way we have to first apply our mind into it, and then we have to fill that forms that will solve many other problems of GHS also, because that is going to be the next toughest thing we have to address our own production and sales. So I think this is what I understand from even from your side also. Many times I have questioned you that how to go upon this type of correct compliances, and you have to apply into that manner that the compliances are not fabricated or just uh, copy pasted. It should be in a real manner, because whenever they ask you specific questions, many people have given even in writing to their questionnaire. As far as my pigments are concerned, I will share my experience that they say that this should be the 100% product. There should be no inorganic material should be incorporated to your product. Otherwise, in future, we can also ask for the compensation if we find such type of things, which usually we don't do. With the pricing tag only we compete. So make sure that this type of things we don't make that mistakes. If we do not want to incorporate inorganic matter, you bluntly say that then this is the pricing. This is you cannot do without incorporation. There is no other trick to make the reaction where you will get more yield and then you will get the cheaper product. Because I have been experiencing with the multinationals this sort of particular questions from them, that this company is giving us at this rates, and why don't you give us? That time this all questions came into it. Then I have found out that there is so many inorganic matter is there into it. So I believe that whatever we give it, it should be the purest data. That is what I mean it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renikji. I mean, that's a clear indication that, the customer request format need to be authentically filled in, and to fill in, we need all the correct informations. That also lead to the last question, probably to the panelists. Then we can take something from the audience. Sir, if you permit, can I ask you, sir? So do you see the need of an awareness program? And you also saw some live data been put in. Will such type of information or tool help the industry? And how would you recommend that as an individual? I'm not now asking you as a GCCI, but as an individual, sir.
Yeah, definitely. It will be help to the industries. So many members are still not knowing for this one. So if it will be circulated to them, then it will be helpful to them. So I have already told you that you give us the data, we will mail to all the members. So it will go to through them. And if even though they will still remaining, then something another program should be given or should done for that one.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So I mean, we agree with you, sir. We promise you that. I mean, at least on behalf of RRMA, we would like to continue the series. The first, of course, was start from Gujarat. They will be moving forward. Maybe in another 4 or 5 months, we would like to come back to you, and that time we would like to have a more specific things as per industry's need. I mean, please help us to know which countries' inputs you would like to have from us, and we will put our all resources together. We have a team of 100 people at the GPC, and the 100 people are working now for RRMA for that matter, at least for 1 year for free. Beyond that, I do not know. I mean, I need to have a deal with you. Yeah. For at least for 1 year, we're going to work free for them. And I'm sure we can help you with those inputs. Just give us the countries of your interest. I'll put my team behind that and then we'll come back to you, sir. But let us know a bit in advance. Yeah. Any questions to the panel from the audience? At least one question. It's not fair to ask only Chemexil a question, huh?
One question from my side.
Sir.
If somebody asks for the compliance for some substance, what this year you have mentioned only whether it is falling under that list or not. But if that falls under the list, at what limits is present into that? Can you give that data to anyone? Like suppose if it is a lead content or a barium content or any toxicology contents, can you put into, because every country has a different ppms or ppb.
As of now, this tool does not contain any analytical data for that matter, because every product will be behaving differently. But what is containing the depth, if you go to the sector wise, it speaks about what are the requirements that one should understand first. Analytical specification limit is not given, sir. Maybe it will take some more time for us to develop it because we are not owners of any analytical data. And if in case we need to put those across in that tool, we need to get the approval from all of those who are helping us with the information. Because of a certain confidential business information we have with all our valuable clients, we do not have those upfront there. But yes, a good suggestion for all of us. We may tie up with some lead libraries for that matter, and then probably they are doing something already. That's good to know.
Exactly what you said, Dr. Nair. We are already working on a different database to combine all the publicly available information regarding the chemicals. So that would be a separate inventory, but it's a work in progress and it would be also available soon, later this year.
Now, why I took that risk of saying, because I saw that logo with the tree, Toxlink, was it? Toxlink, right?
Toxic links.
Toxic link. So when
yeah.
toxic link is there, I mean, ultimately what is beyond the specification is toxic. So I took that liberty to, I mean, I thought that's the reason you're already working with somebody. So once you finalize, also share something to us so
Yes.
that we can also put it in the system there.
Yes, yes. And as I said earlier as well, the objective would be that whatever, because we are doing the job of gathering the information and then gathering the experts related to all those topics. Our objective is to work with different bodies, different associations across the nation so that that information reaches to the right people. So once that information is developed, we know it is of very high value to industry. We would like to reach out, all the associations so that they can take that information forward and disseminate it to the right people.
But I definitely take, sir, your point very strongly, and I'll put it across to both GPC as well as RRMA to see how quickly we can try to incorporate such information in the tool, so members of RRMA can get the benefit of it.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anything from the, yeah, there's a hand going up. If you may please tell your company's name also, it will be good.
Yeah, good evening. I represent cosmetic industry. It's Santara Cosmetics. It's not a question. Basically, it's a thank you note. Basically, this program has helped us a lot. And if I had attended this program a month, if it is there, then my most of the things would have answered. Because we had some requirements, because in the current scenario, the China and US relationship, all these things, some of the global orders, customers wanted to move the business to India.
True.
So in that scenario, we got some options. But for that, we need to register, get all the raw materials for the REACH register.
Correct. Yeah.
And we were trying to get all the data, and we had contacted GPC also, and then we got some data, but there was a delay as per my understanding, because we don't know much about it and we searched it. So now this kind of programs and awareness will definitely help. My one request is whether the structure, whatever the basic knowledge, if I am RRMA or GPC member, then I can see whatever in the portal I can see.
True.
If I am not, then what is the way?
Perfect. Good question. And first of all, thank you, sir, for already getting connected with the GPC members for that matter. But another request is, you mentioned about the delay, and I apologize in case there is some delay from my team side, because I'm responsible to adhere and get back to the turnaround time which we promised. I take the onus on me. I'm sorry for that. But other request is, because we always seek to, request to give the right type of inputs to us, so that we can share the feedback in full. At times what happens is the input that coming to us on piecemeals, because they have that, why should we give this or that information, let them find it. But if you already given the information upfront, I'm sorry for the delay which happened. I'll ensure that as the CEO of GPC, it's my duty as a good feedback of giving, because I also want feedbacks. So on a positive note, I will ensure that we also try to build that discipline within. If we are disciplined, we can get back to you all in a disciplined manner. It's a very positive thing. And on the second part, for those who are members of RRMA, RRMA representative Dr. Vaibhav also mentioned they'll be getting a full access to those things and for free of cost. And those who are GPC would also be getting access to it. But those who are not with GPC, this is not stopping them to use it. Only difference is you will not be in a position to penetrate beyond 3 or 4 levels of search. Okay, आपको जो basic मांगता है मिल जाएगा, लेकिन ज्यादा अंदर समझना हो तो शायद वो पूछेगा भाई कौन सी कंपनी क्यों चाहिए, आपको शायद फोन आ जाएगा, अब अंदर बहुत जा रहे हो तो I mean it's basically as simple as that. So to certain level it's also open for all, sir. Yeah, but if there are more questions, if you're already with GPC, you'll be getting it. RRMA he mentions free of cost. Sir.
When we were talking about BIS certifications and other things, you said that the representation from the industry or the owner of that product should approach us. If they are the member of RRMA, they can make it the road more easier to approach the BIS certification authority. I think if we take it like that, if you take acetic acid, a glacial quality, and the acetic acid of any byproduct, then can it be possible, because both are being used? Then there could be even below that BIS can allow, when the conditions of my customer he's asking that I don't want glacial quality, then can it be possible to represent such things? Then this questions of the monopoly restrictions practices does not exist.
Absolutely. So for the specific question itself, maybe I'm not in a situation right now to respond, but what we can assure is that we can take the questions to them so that they get heard. Now, if they're relevant or not, or they would be addressed right away, or it would take some time, is something that we would also need to understand little bit better, because as I said, we just started, and also in the inauguration program, BIS was represented in the keynote. So we have had an understanding with them that we'll be bringing such things, but how refined and categorized they would be, this still needs to be defined. Yes, certainly, certainly. And as Dr. Nair also said, the biggest help to RRMA for future could be that if you can send out a survey to your member companies requesting what concerns they have, requesting what topics are of their concern, what major questions they have, so that we get an idea what sort of major topics they are interested in catering. Also on the representation side, if you can compile a list of things or list of questions that we can have an understanding, the teams, the technical teams who are having an understanding, they would go through it internally, and then whenever there is a consultation, they would take it for representation. In case of questions that if team needs to understand it better from your behalf, they would come back and have an understanding before going for the representation.
Just for a small example, that if somebody is making hydrochloric acid from different sources, it is all commercial. But still, even today, there is a lot of BIS certifications, and hazard rule 9 comes into the place. So if this is the possibility, then it will resolve many rule 9 problems also.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, certainly.
We do not get any feedback from the members. That is the problem number one. And regarding this, from last 2 years, I think so I have already circulated from the GTMA, but we have already sent to the Anil Bhai at
Yes.
Bombay also in the meeting. But it has been started, and it is a meaning of to get the interest of the larger scale industries, not for the MSME. This is the fact thing.
Yeah. And it's a major concern, I would say. Yes. Thank you.
And regarding the standard preparations to what, I mean, I did not address it in full that time. Probably I didn't want to escalate the topic because it was not the right forum there. But I can say in simplicest way that if there is no standard available, we know industries are approaching to make a BIS standard for IS standard for that. And when you apply for IS standard, whatever you give is not accepted in toto. There is a panel which discusses those things internally, and then they try to conclusion. Maybe they are also circulating it, like QCO. When it comes out, it goes to a lot of industries. It is being given to ICC, Chemexil, and through Chemexil also we get a lot of times bulk emails stating please go through these things and give your feedback to us. So and feedback is taken for sure, because it comes into the as a standard for that matter.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the patient hearing. Now I request Shrenik Bhai Merchant to kindly propose vote of thanks on behalf of Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
On behalf of Gujarat Chamber and Commerce and Industries, I thank RRMA, JPC, Chemexil, and all members who are present over here for attending such a nice regulatory compliance program. And we hope to do again and again. Thanks a lot. There is two program left again. Those who are interested can please attend that, and then we can go for the high tea. Thank you.
One topic is on EU and second topic is on Korea.